Okay, I think, yeah, let's kick it off. Thanks everyone for joining. It's becoming a bi-weekly meeting so that we get substantial stuff to you, and let's go through the discussions, what we have and what's upcoming for 0.6. We're almost 2 weeks away for the 0.6 release. So we are super excited about that as well. And with that, I'll toss it to Suresh. He has a lot of stuff to show.
I'm not sure about a lot of stuff, but we'll see. So, Harsha, can you allow me to share the screen?
Can you try now? Sorry.
Okay, so can you guys see this?
Yes. Yes.
Yep. So this release, I think the major theme is versioning of metadata, and based off of that, we'll build eventing. So just versioning, right? The metadata in an organization changes, right? Continuously changes. Various aspects of metadata keeps changing, and versioning serves as an organizational memory of how the data has changed, right, over a period of time. So a few examples, right? Technical metadata, like the schema of a table, the number of charts in a dashboard, the number of features in, let's say, ML feature group, number of tasks in a pipeline. It can change over a period of time, right? These are all technical metadata. So that results in version change, and it's kept track of how things have changed. Also, other business metadata, right? People provide tags, ownership changes, description changes over time. All of this is also versioned. I'll show you an example of how the versioning looks like. So we do versioning for all entities, right? So all the services like database service, messaging service, dashboard service, things there like description could change, ingestion schedule could change. All of that are those things are tracked with the versioning capability. And then also versioning for data assets, right? Not just for database and tables, but for all data assets, right? Dashboards, charts, topics, pipelines, things like that, right? And what we track is in every version of an entity, we track what has changed from previous version to get to this version, right? And then there are APIs to look at all the previous versions of an entity, right? And then also you can get to a specific version of an entity, right? This is super useful if you want to look at how, 1 year ago, what the schema was. Let's say you had stashed off some data. You can now look at, what the schema was 1 year ago, and you can still use the data that you had, let's say archived. So let's look at versioning itself. A version is a major.minor number. That is the format that we are using. Entity always starts with the version number 0.1 when it is created. For any backward compatible changes, the version number is bumped up by 0.1. As an example, let's say you updated the description of an entity or ownership changes. It goes from 0.1 to 0.2. For the next change, it goes from 0.2 to 0.3. Now, for backward incompatible changes, it is bumped up by one, by the major number. So let's say, the only backward incompatible change right now we have is a table column deletion, which results in other people who are consuming writing queries no longer have this column, right? And so to flag that backward incompatible change, we bump the major number. So as an example, it goes from 0.1 to 1.1, right? So, major and minor number, backward compatible and backward incompatible changes, right? So let's quickly go through the demo. Can you guys see my screen? Is it readable?
It is for me.
Okay. It is for me too. Yeah, looks good.
Okay, so let's look at, so we have, so this is work in progress, right? So we have a few examples. So let me show an example of what a version change currently looks like, okay? So let's say get a table. So I don't know if you guys have looked at our APIs, it's available right there in the sandbox. You can, give it a shot. So let's say I'm going to try this, right? So I'm searching for a table with a fully qualified name, right? That is database name. I mean, the database service name, which is BigQuery, and then database name and the table name. So it looks like I need to re-log in. So this is how you can access APIs right there in your sandbox, or if you have installed your machine. So let me go to tables. And I'll get a table by name. So BigQuery dot Shopify dot customer. So I got the information about the table. So one thing that you will see here is in this version, right? The previous version was 1.1. The current version is 1.1. This is versioning, right? So always an entity has its current version. It also has a change description from previous version 1.1, what got changed, right? So in here, I think it was updated by Parth, and he added to column shop ID tags. Okay, so right now what it is describing is who changed it, when did they change it, and what change did they make, right? Where was the change? Right now, I'm working on what is the change, right? So it just shows column shop ID tags changed, right? So now we'll add, I'm working on a change where it will say what tags got added, right? So what is the change will also be described. So right now it is just where is the change, okay? So a previous version was 1.1, we bumped it up to 1.2 because column shop ID got added a tag, okay? So fields added, so a tag got added. So that's the change. Now, there are a few things, right? You can actually, let me just copy the ID. So this is the ID, unique ID of the table. And then there is a new API for all entities. You can send a request and get all the versions, right? The previous versions. Now, note that these versions are JSON payload. So you have to use table.json or table schema to parse this JSON string. So that is how all the versions are here. And then let's take a look at getting a specific version of a table, right? So we saw we had 1.2 version of the table. So let's get it. 1.1. So let's get this. So in 1.1, the table, the previous version was 1, and then the column email got fields added, which is tags. You can also keep going to any specific version. Okay, so let's go to 1.0 and then send request. Now in version 1.0, the change was somebody added column first name tags there. So you can keep going, right? So when it got created, the entity was, let's see if this works. So that the version, there is no change because it was, created. And then version 0.2, somebody added owner, and then somebody added tags at the table level, right? So right now it shows where the change is. We'll add the details of what the change is. So just to summarize, all entities now have versions. Each entity shows what change happened from the previous version to get to the current version. And then you have a table for an API for listing all the versions so that you can look at what has changed over a period of time. And then you can get a specific version of any entity. So that's the that's the demo from the API perspective. And we have done some really cool stuff with this information at the UI. Arsha, do you want to show it? Arsha.
Sorry, I was on mute. Just give me a second. I'm sharing my screen.
Meanwhile, I mean, you guys can ask any questions, and we can park it till the end. Yeah, currently I'm working on adding what changed, and building that functionality is simple. I'm taking away, but writing tests for that is really, really hard, especially when you have nested columns and things like that. So I'm working on the tests.
So yeah, if everyone can see my screen, so let me look at this is the sandbox that we have. This is a sandbox beta. We're gonna kind of daily install it here. What are the changes that are coming through the community itself? So these are recently viewed. I click on my team customer. There is a lot of data, and I can look at the versions button here. Once I click versions, it shows from the very beginning what are all the changes that happened to this particular entity.
You saw the APIs for this. Now, this is the visual representation.
Yeah. So at the very beginning of the entity, you can see that ingestion bot. That means this is our ingestion bot that's coming in, talking to BigQuery, Redshift, whatnot, getting the metadata into the system itself. Then later, other users are coming in and updating few entities here. Like, I should updated the tags and so on. So any changes that's happening to the entity, as I showed earlier, through the APIs we're capturing, including through the automation. Let's say if the user went to the database itself, altered the column, changed the comments, whatnot, those are captured by the ingestion bot, right? And then you have, data scientists or data engineers in your team coming here, updating the metadata about this entity, like descriptions and everything. Those are captured here as well, along with the timestamp. So this is kind of a work in progress, as we said earlier. But what's we're going to bring it here is a better experience. Like at each version, we're going to show what changed, similar to a bunch of Git dev or Google Docs experience. So that as a user, I know, hey, I should be added this tag, or he changed the description, whatnot. So this will help us not in terms of how the entity is evolving, but also in terms of governance and other things as well. So Rishi, do you want to add anything else?
I think one of the experiences that we are still working on is it would show if the description, some things got deleted. It will show, by scratching, the text that something got deleted, what got added. So we are looking at having some kind of, Google Doc kind of experience where you not only look at what was the state of the metadata at a specific version, you will also see what got changed from the previous version. That way you can, visually look at all the things that were newly added, previously deleted, things like that. Let me just continue with the slides that I was earlier showing. So that's our demo. Now, a few things, right? Why did we? It's actually there's a complex functionality on the server side. So why are we adding this? Clearly, right, as we showed in the demo, people can understand now how data has changed over time, right? Understanding that will help in debugging, right? So if you're looking at something is suddenly not working, you can actually go back and look at the data that is upstream of yours, the data that you depend on, for your, let's say, dashboards, metrics, and stuff like that. You can take a look at what changed, right? And then you can eliminate the possibility that, there's nothing has changed, or that change is the cause of the problem that you're debugging. The second thing is this becomes a way to keep organization, the data users in sync with what is going on with data. We can send data chain notifications to, let's say, somebody who's following the data, right? We can say, this description changed, a tag got added, right? Any change that has happened, we can actually send notifications so that followers can keep up with the change in data. We can also send alerts, right? Notification is informational. Alerts is, hey, you need to look at this. And so we can send alerts to followers or downstream consumers. An example is schema change backward incompatible way, a column got deleted, you get an alert, right? That this column has gotten deleted. That way, you know what has gone on. So either you can proactively change, let's say if you have dependency on that column, you can proactively change your code, right? Your artifacts, or you know how to debug it, right? So you have been informed. The other thing is collaboration, right? So one of the things that we have done right now is only the owner of the data can change the metadata, right? Only the owner of a table can change the description, add tags and things like that, or you have to be an administrator. Now we can allow for certain fields, anybody can change within an organization, right? That way, let's say you have a description that has a typo. You don't want somebody who's reading it to, let you know, ask a question. You have to get back to him just to change a typo. You can actually allow users to just update the description with complete peace of mind that, let's say if somebody changed it in a way where, they introduce some errors into the description, you can actually go back and look at what changed, and then you can revert it back, right? Or you can accept if, the description looks good. So this makes some of the metadata not just the responsibility of owners of the data, but instead it is a collective responsibility of entire organization, right? Everybody who is, who is into making the data really good can participate with a complete peace of mind that, you can always go back and look at what has happened, right? And then revert back if it is necessary. Finally, right, most importantly, there is a functionality that we are still working on for this release. We will turn any of these metadata changes into eventing. And so you should be able to receive events, and events themselves become an enabler for a lot of automation, right? Somebody added a PII tag, maybe, you can kick off a workflow for PII data, things like that, right? So a lot of automation can be built around this eventing. Inspiration here is how Slack bots work, right? Something happened, and then a Slack bot has registered, and then you can do certain things. In the same way, we can do metadata eventing based on this versioning. Something has changed, and then somebody can react and provide some functionality. So those are the use cases that will be enabled by this. That's sort of what I had in mind for the demo. Stop sharing and see if you guys have any questions. Any questions? Any feedback, thoughts?
Hey Suresh, this is Shawi. So it's very impressive demo, and I've never seen this metadata versioning, at least from Metastore and all the other existing metadata services, and that's very impressive. So my question is this compatible with the Metastore? I see there's a namespace layer, something like a namespace layer that called DB services on top of the database, and is this something that you can scale to multiple database services, and so that you can have separate isolations for different kind of services?
That is correct. So let me just go back to the demo part just to answer that question. So what we have is a concept of we should keep our header. We have so many APIs. So let's take a look at this. Okay. So what we do is we can we have this services page. You can define different kinds of services which become source of metadata for us. Okay. So here is database service, and what you can add as source for metadata is BigQuery, MySQL, Redshift, Hive, as you asked. So there are a bunch of both online databases and data warehouses here. We can also use, you can add Kafka as a source of metadata here, dashboard services where we currently support Superset, Looker, Tableau, and Redash. And this is going to be a continuing, growing list. Okay. And then you can also add pipeline services. Right now we have support for Airflow and Prefect. So which means each of these different services are bringing their own kinds of metadata entities, right? Database services are bringing database and tables. In our case, tables and schemas are combined together. Database is database and catalog combined together if there are different hierarchies within databases. And then messaging service is bringing topics, dashboard services are bringing dashboards and charts, pipeline services are bringing pipelines. Now, to answer your question, so we have a concept of namespace. So let's take a look at this, okay? Redshift is a database service. Everything, these are the databases under Redshift, right? You can also have, let's say Hive is a database service, and then there are databases under it. And, let me just take this as an example, because this is where we have set up our sample data. So there's one database. Under this database, there are these tables, okay? And so if you look at it, each of these tables, the fully qualified name for this table is essentially bigquery.shopify.dim address. Okay, so database services must have unique name, right? Database service must have a unique name. A database under that should be unique within the database service, and that's why Shopify's fully qualified name is bigquery.shopify. And then under the database, the tables must have unique name. So that's why dim address has, and what we do is bigquery.shopify.dim address is going to be unique across the entire metadata system, and dim address is unique within Shopify. Shopify is unique within BigQuery. Okay, so that is our fully qualified namespace for every entity. So every entity will have service name.entity name if it is one hierarchy, or in this case there is two hierarchies. So it is service name.database table name. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is in terms of scalability, because it's we want to centralize all metadata, right? All data assets in a single place. So there were a lot of questions around our scalability. And so what we ended up doing is we created a sandbox just to make sure that we do have we think we have scalability, but we want to prove that we have scalability. So we set up so to give you an example, at Uber we had 250,000 tables and maybe 250,000 queries, dashboards, things like that, around 500,000 entities. Okay, so we set up a system 4 times bigger than that, with 1.1 million tables and 500,000 dashboards and a whole bunch of tags and relationships, just to see how we scale. And Harsha, I don't know if you still have that.
We do.
Yeah, so if you want to show that as I'm speaking, stop sharing. So scalability is something that now we feel extremely comfortable with. We looked at the response time, search time, and all of that. So we have this sandbox. You can go take a look at it. It's got 1.1 million tables and 10,000 topics and 10,000 dashboards, things like that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot more than that. So
yeah.
So that's so we have like 851 services, which means those are like independent data.
Go to services. We hope that this many services are not required for any company, right? But you can see, right, these are number of MySQL databases, BigQuery, Hive, and all of that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, just curious, what's the backend like to host?
The backend is MySQL, fairly straightforward MySQL database. And our database modeling, maybe we should write a blog. We use JSON document. Harsha, you may want to go to the code and show that that V00 and the SQL stuff. So our data modeling is, so we have entities table for every entity, and then there is an edge table, bridge table, there are different names for it. So this is what it is, and we store entities as JSON document, and then we use Elasticsearch for search and suggest.
I see. Thanks. And the follow-up question is like when we do the versioning, and is the versioning specific to a table or to a database or global versioning across the actual services?
So what we ended up building is we built extensibility. Okay. So what we end up doing is, Harsha, can you show the search for extension within this? Yeah, so we have something called entity extensions. Okay, you can define, we use entity extension as an additional data for an entity. So we use this for tracking all the usages of an entity, profiling data of an entity, which is not the core part of the entity itself, right? It's an additional data that additional metadata, related to usage, profile. This is where we are also storing entity versions, old versions. And what we expect is at some point in time, after a number of versions, we can cut it off and push it into an archival storage.
I see. And sorry, this is my last question. So there are a lot of table formats nowadays, and they also include the versioning and some of the metadata. Do we have any plan to incorporate like iceberg or delta table format so that combine the metadata and data version together so that they can have a consistent view of all the data assets in the large corporations?
That is an awesome question. So what we are doing here is the versioning of metadata. How about the version of data itself, right? If metadata changes, we can track it. But if there are versions related to data, how do we track it? So we have a person from Netflix working on integration of Iceberg into, and also Delta Lake into OpenMetadata. Stay tuned.
Okay. Do you want to, can you share the name? And I just want to follow up with some of the Iceberg or Delta versioning support on the OpenMetadata.
Yeah.
So you can share offline. Yeah, thanks.
That would be awesome.
I have a question just about the events. How are they going to be published? Just like webhooks or something similar?
Yeah, so this is one thing that I'm still thinking about. Probably webhooks. We'll study some of the eventing that other people have done and their lessons. So callback, webhooks, WebSockets. There are various things. Still thinking about it. If you're interested in, or if you, definitely my knowledge here is thin. And so if you have thought a lot more about it, I would love to get your feedback. And if you want to work on it, would love to collaborate because I need to educate myself here. So we can now produce the events, and then how do people consume the events? A couple of things that we'll do is we'll have our own functionality built on top of eventing. For example, our Elasticsearch will update its index based on eventing, right? We will start, so we will start in the future releases building collaboration where notifications will be sent based on this eventing, right? Some event happened, and then we consume that event and then send notification to followers, downstream users like I was talking about. But then definitely we want external consumption of events and people writing applications. We've been talking a lot about automation. We have concept of bots that we have just started with, but we have not gone far enough with it. Still work in progress, thinking in progress. So if you have some thoughts here, we would love to, let's chat.
Sure, yeah, we'll think of it.
Yeah, we can collaborate on Slack.
Okay.
Right now, I'm just thinking of, get event, so you have to get the type of events that you want, right? So that means event that happened for a specific entity, and then the type of event that happened for a specific entity, right? Entity got created, deleted, modified, followers got added, and followers got deleted, things like that, right? So there is event that you can subscribe to, and then right now the first cut I was thinking of was for a criteria that you are looking and you are looking for, right? The type of an entity and the type of a change. What changes have happened since the last time I looked at it, right? So sort of like a pull mechanism. But then we can also have more real-time non-pull based mechanism based on webhooks and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, I think Harsha, you should talk about what are the other features that we are working on for 0.6.
Hey, yes. So into the 0.6 release, I don't know if you guys let me share my roadmap. This is kind of a going to update the roadmap.
We have a bunch of stretch goals in 0.6, so we'll see how well we'll do.
All right. So yeah, in 0.5, obviously we did the lineage, and we also talked about eventing and notification there. But we added a bunch of other work into the 0.5. Example could be the data profiler itself, and getting the data and visualizing the data within the UI. And so that pushed out eventing into 0.6. As you've seen, eventing is making a good progress, and we're going to push as part of the 0.6. There are a bunch of other stuff that went into the code itself, like a lot of refactoring that went into both backend of Java as well as Python. I want to give a call out to Pere, who did an amazing work to clean up a lot of ingestion side. With 0.6, adding an entity is really simple right now, because Suresh did a whole bunch of refactoring. It used to be really simple. Now it becomes even easier right now. So that's a welcome change. So that adding a new entities, anything that comes in the future release will be simple 1 hour, couple of hours work. With that, the major features. Sorry.
We also upgraded from JDBI 2 to JDBI 3. There was a huge change. Yeah. But the advantage now is we could only work up to Java 11. We could not work on newer releases. With JDBI 2 to JDBI 3 upgrade, we support newer Java versions.
Yep. And in terms of features, versioning you have seen, and we are also adding what we call as a quick ingestion through the UI itself. So if you look at the docs right now, you need to set up the OpenMetadata separately and then go and run metadata ingestion, either through Airflow or kind of manually for quick setup. What we want to do here is from UI itself, you can go and say that, hey, I have Redshift, I have BigQuery, I have Hive, configure just like what you do in services, JDBC, URL, and everything else. Then enable ingestion will take you to some additional configuration, and you can just right there enable it, and it will deploy a workflow onto the Airflow cluster. Okay, so that way all the setup is through the UI itself, and that will be much more easier than what we have right now, right? So that's another feature that we are going to ship. On Profiler, we redid the profile a lot of new stuff that's coming in there itself that might not be visible right away. There will be improvements to the UI, but it might not be visible right away, the full extent where we want to go with the Profiler, right? One is right now, Profiler will give you kind of standard metrics, which is, hey, what is a min, max, median, what is a standard deviation, what are the histograms, etc. For numeric, strings, and date timestamp. What we are added here as part of the ingestion itself is you can custom define certain metrics. Let's say I want to go to, for example, let me open up. Sorry. I don't know why this is, okay, never mind. So what I wanted to show is, like, you go to the data profiler, you see, standard metrics. We want to provide a way for the users to define custom metrics. Example could be, hey, I want to kind of calculate the total price per product ID, and I want to kind of create conditions or tests based on that. So that feature built into the library, but we haven't yet integrated UI. that might not make it to 0.6, but definitely will be part of 0.7. So just highlighting again, versioning, metadata ingestion. We're going to do the DBT integration as part of this release, as well as AWS Glue that's coming in. And those are the connectors that you're going to support. As for the DBT, we're going to do the lineage as well as the table metadata information that's coming in as well. So those are the kind of high-level features. And going to the 0.7, again, this roadmap will change. We'll see an updated version by end of today, where again, the user collaboration, those kind of features will move to 0.7. And yeah, that's kind of a high-level overview.
Is it possible to link the JIRAs to those high-level features so we can follow the works?
Definitely, that's a good idea. Actually, the only problem with GitHub is there is no epic Jira, unlike the Jira itself. So yeah, we'll at least attach a label and do it. That'll be good.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, we've not been super disciplined in terms of creating epic issues and then task under it and all of that. Now that more people are coming onto the community and following the work, Harsha, we should now focus more on how we are creating the issue. It's been like we've been moving so fast. Create an issue, fix it. You will see a lot of churn. But then making sense of, and I think we should also have for every release maybe change notes and then the epics that we have fixed so that people can go look at the epic, the issues under it, and then the corresponding code change.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely, that's a great idea.
Anything else, guys? Hopefully you guys like the versioning feature, and hopefully we nail the user experience.
All right. If we have any other regular besides this, the community or the code, or if you're running it locally and running into any issues, we can take up some questions. We have some more time. So.
And by the way, Simon, I will get back to you on your request. Sorry, I've been very busy.
No worries at all. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you everyone for joining. Looking forward to your contributions in any way, right? Feedback, thoughts, comments, bugs, code, anything would be super helpful. Even questions, right? That makes us think. All are super useful. So happy to see the community is growing and participate in the Slack channel and ask any questions, trigger any discussions.
Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye, Perry.